Hey everyone, welcome. We are going to
Hey,
start
everybody.
our ScoutX demo. Welcome, Jesse.
Good to be here. I'm super excited about this one.
Yeah, I know. This is your thing. Like this is your thing. It's going to
Yeah,
be
it's been
great.
my baby for the last, I don't know, year-ish or so, I think. Maybe not quite that long, but it's definitely like the work has moved so fast, and we've had such a good group of beta testers helping us move it forward even more. It's just been a whirlwind for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. All right, I'm ready to get started whenever you are.
Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Um,
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you one thing first. What is ScoutX?
So ScoutX is a Chrome extension that we've built to live inside of the Amazon website on both the search results page and the product details page to give our sellers who are doing some online arbitrage some really timely information as they research products to sell. Um, we've tried to make it the best in its space. We have some competitors there, and I think that one of the things that we took really seriously was trying to do what we do in Stratify, which is let's design something that's functional and provides a lot of valuable information, but is also pretty and easy to use as well. And that to me, I think as a designer is super important because I care more about the way that things present to people than I do about what's going on behind the scenes. We have a great development team who handles all of that. I've worked kind of in tandem with one of our China team members, Cindy, to build this, and we've obviously had help from other people as well. But she and I have kind of been the driving forces behind ScoutX, and it's been a great opportunity to work with her. But like I said, she and I come from different sides. We provide different things to ScoutX, but I think that the feedback we're getting from our beta testers, the internal feedback that we've been getting from the IL team, it's all been really great, and we're super excited about this product.
Yeah, it's super awesome. So another thing that I want to ask before we get started is how did the idea of ScoutX come to be?
Well, like I said, we have a lot of people involved here, and this was actually kind of the brainchild of Brian, our CEO. He came to me a while back and said, I really feel like it would be a valuable addition to our software suite to add a Chrome extension that helps people with online arbitrage. We have great tools for all kinds of sellers, and our Scout area within Stratify has definitely kind of filled the space for online arbitrage for a while. But there are some things that are available to us when we don't have to rely on an Amazon API to get something that a Chrome extension can do, that really allows us to provide more information at the right time for our users to make their buying decisions. And this tool really kind of fills that niche. It was definitely something that I went into it. I spent a lot of time in software design, but I've never worked on a Chrome extension before. So it was kind of a technical challenge to learn how to develop for it. But overall, I think it has a lot of the same constraints as other software design, and particularly when it comes to web apps. So kind of fit right in with what I usually do. It's just a new space to work in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. So, all right, you want to head on in with the demo?
Let's do it. So the first place that I want to really spend a little bit of time is when you install ScoutX, you have this little guy up here. It's just a simple toggle to turn off and on and log in and out and that kind of thing. But it shows up in two different places on Amazon. You do your product search, you're looking for something more general. You haven't really narrowed it down to a specific ASIN yet. And you can see your results here. And ScoutX inserts some valuable information to each search result. It shows you the ASIN, the category, and that kind of thing, the ranking information. It'll show you who owns the buy box. It'll show you how many offers there are, so you know how many people you're competing against. It'll even show you the number of variations that you're looking at, which I think is pretty awesome as well. And you notice also has some research shortcuts here. So if you're like, I'm looking at this on Amazon, but I'd like to see what it's doing on eBay, or I'm really curious about what Google has to say about it, or you can even bring in some custom research shortcuts that are kind of similar to the way that we do them in Scoutify and in Scout and in List. And I'll show you that in just a minute when we get into the details page. But another thing that I think is super valuable too is that if you're scrolling these results and you happen to come across one that is just a no-go when it comes to selling, let's say Amazon, is the only person allowed to sell that item because it's an Amazon brand. It'll actually show you that too. So you can see right here, you don't even have to bother clicking
Look
there.
at
That's
that.
just something you can
Wow.
sell. And the UI here is really, really flexible too. So if you happen to be working on a much larger screen, it'll open up and give your information a little more room to breathe. If you happen to come across one of those vertical list items that's not like a 4 wide columns layout, it'll adjust for that too and show you a nice wide layout that's not quite as tall, so it doesn't take up as much space. And as the designer, I took that really seriously, because when we're working inside of Amazon's product pages, we're really trying to design in a much smaller space than would be if we're designing in Stratify. Because in
Mhm.
Stratify, I have the whole width of your screen, or whatever your browser window size is, to play in. But with ScoutX, we had to take those constraints into account and design something that worked anyway and didn't like run off the edge of the UI or just get cut off entirely. So a lot of this information is much more neatly laid out than I would say in other areas where I've seen similar designs attempted. So let's go ahead and go
Very
down to the
cool.
product details. And one of my go-to searches when it comes to designing an InventoryLab, you will find out is dog costumes. I have no idea why I landed there, but it started, I came across a really cute picture of an Ewok dog costume from Star Wars. There's a little like
Okay. That's how
West
that
Highland
got to the
White
test
Terrier.
account.
Yes, yes, it is. And it just stuck. I have no idea why. I don't dress my dogs up in costumes, but it's what I search for when I'm trying to design. And it's a nice kind of product mini category that gives me some
Yeah.
obvious variations and things like that, because you have different colors and sizes sometimes and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
anywho, um, I really want to talk about what ScoutX can do for individual users. One of the things that we put a lot of time and effort into is making sure that, since we're operating in such a constrained size area, we want users to be able to take things out or add things in based on their needs, and also to be able to move things around and resize so that it can just kind of adjust to wherever they're at. So let's dive into settings really quick here, and I'll show you what I mean.
Yeah.
So you have quite a few settings here. We have some restriction checks and hazmat checks that show up, but you also have the ability to do things like positioning your widget. So you can choose which of the 3 columns on the Amazon product details page you want this to sit in. So let's just say I want to move it above the product image. I can click that setting there, and it'll shift it over there. And now that's where
Oh,
it lives.
cool.
And everything gets remembered. So if you change a setting, you don't have to hit save or anything like that. It's just going to remember that. So when you start like searching for a couple different products, it's just going to live there. It won't change back to the center column or anything when you start searching other products. The one that I really like, though, and this is the one that I use when I'm designing and when I'm actually just doing product research to test it, is our floating window, which allows you to pop it over the page entirely. And then you can drag it around. You can grab it and resize it if you want. And it
Oh,
has an
wow.
adjustable layout too. So if you notice here, I'm using a 2-column layout right now, but if you decide you want it to be like super wide and not quite so tall, you can go super wide, and
Oh,
it'll
that's so
adjust your
cool.
layout to a 3-column layout. And every column is individually scrollable. So if you start to cut things off, you can definitely still get to it. I'm going to go ahead and pop this back into the center column though, so that we can keep going. And when you're in the individual columns and you're not floating, you can still adjust the height. So if you notice something is cut off and you want to see it, you can still drag and adjust your height there too.
Wow, I love how customizable that is. That's so cool.
That's only the beginning of the customizability, because this, like I said, it's we have a lot of different sellers and everyone sells slightly differently. So we want to be able to even go further
Mhm.
than that. So you have
Mhm.
different modules within the UI here. You've got your tabs, you've got the offers information, you've got your calculator and your product information. Let's just say I want to save space. So I'm going to tuck the product information up into our menu. So I can just keep it out of the way, but I can look at it if I want to. So now our product information is up here instead of in a box down in the UI. So you have more space for something else. You can
Wow.
also go in and turn on and off individual modules. You can turn off the tabs container if you don't find that is valuable to you. You can turn off the product offers as well. And then all of a sudden you have a nice basic UI that just shows you product information and your calculator. I'm going to turn those
Wow.
back on because I want to show you what's in those later. The other thing that I really like, and this is one that happened pretty recently, is the ability to reposition things. So a lot of times people look, when they're looking at user interfaces, at the top left first, right? So this thing in the top left, which is currently product offer information, is the most important spot. So let's just say you really want your calculator there. You can come to settings and you can position your module using drag and drop. Just let it go. And now your calculator's top left.
Wow.
We even go a little further than that, because those tabs that I talked about right here, these rank, graph, offers, and reviews, can also be removed and added, and you can also reposition those. So you can just drag and drop them in the order you want. And the other thing that's really cool is if you have a particular tab open all the time, I don't care if it's offers or reviews or rank information, when you set that, when you click on that rank tab, you can go to other product pages and it's going to keep it there until you change it. And when you change it, it'll remember what you change it to, and then it'll stay there until you move it. So if you really consider one of these tabs the most important, just click it and leave it. All right.
Wow,
So
that's so amazing. I'm sorry. I just love this tool.
I do too. It's so exciting to play with. Another thing that I really love too is that we're trying to keep the primary information the focus of what you're looking at, but we also have a lot of ways to drill in and see more. So if you look at our net profit numbers here, right now we're obviously not buying something for zero. So let's just say, I think that I probably want to use target cost, which is one of our settings. And you basically just arrange that here. So let's just scroll down to that for a second. Desired ROI is what basically creates your target cost, which is similar to target by cost in Scoutify. And you want to return 50%. So it'll tell you what price you have to buy that at in order to get that 50%. And if I see my target cost right here is $871, I can click it. It'll add it to my buy cost, and it'll show me, as you can see, we're at 50.06%, and it tells me what my net profit is for that. And then I can drill in and see why it's that. I can look at everything that I'm doing to calculate my net profit. So I can see all the fees that are going on right here. I can see anything that I set personally, so I can set discount or my personal sales tax wherever I'm living, any other expenses that I have to account for, and how long I expect to store it even. So we can do all of this, and then it just kind of tucks it away until you need it. If you really want to know that information, you can, but if you don't, it's out of the way so you can see the important number, which obviously is your net profit. All right, where else can we go? Let's look at this real quick. So our rank information is really detailed. It breaks it down into 30, 90, and 180 days. And you can see the important numbers right there, but there's even more to drill down to here if you really want to. You can look at your buy box average. You can see the stock out rates for all the different channels. You can see the different prices for the different, like Amazon averages this price, new FBA, and the people you were competing with average this price, that kind of thing. It's really handy and informative without being too hard to get that information.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, before I move on to the next thing that I'm really excited about, is variations. So if you look down here at the bottom, you've got some shortcuts similar to what you saw in search results. And there's a little icon to the left that's actually got the same icon as this little bit of UI down here. And that is our product variations area. And this is all of their variations for the product you're looking at, with lots and lots of extra information that you can see if you want to. This, again, is fully customizable, so you can add and remove columns if you don't find any value in them. And there's even more places to drill down and find more. So you can see right here, these are the different sellers that are selling this variation with their individual prices and everything. So this is kind of like the more specific version of our averages that you see in the basic UI.
It's like a Russian nesting doll, you know, you like, the more you just get into something, there's more there. It's so cool.
That's how complex UI becomes easy to use. You don't want to necessarily throw everything at everybody all at once. You want to keep the important information front and center, and then let them find out where they can drill in to find more. And we tried to make that drill down really easy. It's never more than maybe one level deep. So
yeah, it's really cool and useful.
And another cool little thing here too, if you really want to see a whole bunch of things, you can drag this guy up and resize him so he's not cut off down at the bottom, and then just bring him back down and click your tab and get him out of the way.
Very cool.
And we actually do a similar thing. I totally forgot to show you this when I was in the floating window part, but we realized that there are some bits of information that you might want to see on your product details page that we're covering up if you're floating like this, because it just kind of stays there. So if you want to get that out of the way, just click that little icon there. It'll make it into just a little toolbar and let you get it out of the way for a second. And then you can click it back up and you're back to normal. So let's talk about probably my favorite piece of ScoutX that we've added recently. I want to talk about Google Sheets. And this was directly from our beta testers. They told us they wanted this. And it was kind of a fun little puzzle to try and figure out, because we hadn't been working with any external APIs besides Amazon's up to this point. So we had to figure out how to connect Google and then how to actually make it work. And this is so much fancier than just doing a copy and paste thing. It's actually connected directly to Google, so you don't have to do anything manually. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. It's right up here in the top menu bar. And this, again, you can also turn off in settings if you want to. But I went ahead and created a nice little spreadsheet to demo this for you. If you want to add another one, you can just do whatever you want here. And just hit enter or plus. It'll add your spreadsheet in there. Oh, hold on. Disconnected for a second. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and look at what it looks like to edit a spreadsheet. So right here, we allow you to customize whatever columns you want in your spreadsheet. You can do all of these things right here. You can do none of them. You can basically just do a multiple select here and drag everything over at once, or you can just leave it as is. But the big thing is that you are able to do this with as many spreadsheets as you want. We create them for you in Google Sheets. And then if you have them turned on, which is this little toggle right here, the little green toggle next to the spreadsheet title, it just shows up down here in Add Item. And when you hit Add Item, let's go ahead and do that. In this particular case, I included a personal note in one of my spreadsheet columns. So it lets me add my note in real time. So then I can just hit Add Note. It'll connect to Google. It'll send it over, and you're done.
Wow.
And if you look over in my spreadsheet now, which I did not touch myself, there it is.
Oh my goodness. That's so cool.
Yeah, it is really fun. And it's one of those things where I think that it'll be really valuable for people who use multiple people to do sourcing, especially online arbitrage, obviously, since this tool is for that. It'll allow them to do things as long as they connect with the same Google account. Everyone will have access to the same spreadsheets. They can add from wherever they are when they're sourcing. And it's just really nice and slick.
Wow. So it has that multi-user functionality. That is really slick.
So a lot of times sellers are also worried about things like restrictions. I want to show you what it looks like here. If you notice up here in the top, there's an Amazon logo with a little exclamation point. And we have different UI that shows different kinds of restrictions. So this item, it means it's partially restricted. So you can click on that and you can see your restriction information, what conditions you're allowed to sell it in, and what conditions you're not allowed to sell it in. And that just shows up whenever you come up on a product details page. You don't have to log into Seller Central. You don't have to do anything. It's just there.
Wow.
One other thing that I wanted to go over before we move on to something that is brand new and still in development, but I do want to give everyone a peek at it, is what it looks like when you show up on a parent ASIN page and we don't have like specific information to calculate stuff. So when you show up at a place where you have something like a size that you have to select, we actually show that right in the UI. We're not trying to do too many like unavailable calculations. We just let you know it's a parent ASIN and tell you what to do. And sometimes it's a size, sometimes it could be a color, whatever the variation is. And as soon as you go ahead and select something specific enough, the UI will adjust.
There you go. Yep. Wow.
Yeah. And if you can see, it actually, when it readjusted, it remembered that I'm using a floating window in my other window and changed it to that.
That's so cool.
All right. So let's go on to the last little bit of my demo here, and then we'll go ahead and see if anyone has any questions. As I said, this one is still in development. It's not even available to our beta testers yet, but it is something that we got, again, directly from them. It's something they told us is important. We're definitely trying to listen as we've been building this to things that they need. So let's talk about small and light.
Small
so in your
and
settings,
light. Small and
yes,
light.
ma'am.
Sorry.
Sure. I'm excited too. So if you see right here, we've got a setting in FBA options down here that allows you to do standard, small, and light comparison. So we can go ahead and turn this on. And as you see, we got a little bit of UI right here that allows us to kind of toggle back and forth between standard fees and small and light fees. And if you might have noticed, when I moved between standard and small and light, something changed with that number right there.
It sure did.
I'm selling this item as a standard FBA item. I'm making $1.27 in profit. But I can go ahead and say, I know this is eligible for small and light. It's not hazmat. It's really small. It's really light. It meets the dimension requirement. So let's just turn over there and see what it'll do. And it gives me another dollar and some cents in profit on this one item. And not only that, but again, you can drill down and you can see exactly what that is. So if you're really curious about what the small and light fee is, it's right there.
Wow. Oh, our users are going to be so excited for the small and light fees. So excited.
I hope so. I definitely think it's a good addition, and it's really necessary because, I mean, it's a big program and it's something that people gain a lot of extra income from, and when they can sell it for less, or excuse me, pay less fees, then that's okay, just point blank.
Yeah.
So this is also a good place to show you what it looks like when an item is fully restricted, because I think this is a brand restriction that my particular account does not have lifted. So when you show up at a fully restricted item, you'll see this little icon up here, and it'll tell you, obviously, you can't sell any of these conditions, but you also have a nice little link right here to go to Seller Central and ask to be approved. All right. The last thing that I wanted to show you is a little bit of UI that happens when we're using this small and light feature, but we happen to be on an item that does not meet the small and light requirements. So let's just turn this guy on over here. All right, so now I'm looking at standard fees. But if for some reason, and I'm selling this right now for $871, which is what my target cost was, I'm listing it for $24.56, which is the important number here. And if I move over to small and light, you'll notice that we kind of badge it. We're not trying to block you from seeing what the small and light fees are. We're just trying to give you a little nudge that the small and light limit right now is $12. So it'll tell you right here, the max list price for small and light is $12. And you can go to learn more if you want to about why that is. It also shows you down here in your net profit. It's not red because you're not negative, but it is bad. It's changing the color to yellow to let you know, hey, this is probably not accurate because you're not selling it for a low enough price, which is indicated right here.
Wow, that's so cool.
And this is a feature that, like I said, we're still actively working on. It's not out to our beta testers. I think there's still some places where we want to improve on it, but it is definitely one of the more exciting additions to something that is already a pretty exciting product. So I just wanted to give everybody a peek at it.
Yeah. Should we open it up to any questions from the audience?
I think we should.
All right. Yeah. Do we have any questions from the audience? Pop them right there in the chat or the Q&A. Oh, we did that one already.
Yeah.
Let's see. So what features are you most excited about in ScoutX?
I think that I'm biased in that respect. As a designer, I want to make sure that I create products that are really easy to use, but also that adapt to whatever user happens to be using them. So I really like the customizability, like being able to resize and have it stay that size, being able to move things around, being able to take them in or take them out or put them back in. I think that to me is an area where ScoutX shines. And it's also, I think, an area where that's where software design is going. Like, you expect for things to be customized to your needs. And a lot of times I think really large pieces of software kind of miss that. They just give you everything. It's everything in the kitchen sink. And you just have to kind of learn to ignore the parts that you can't use rather than just really taking the overall product and making it yours. I mean, we do that with things that we own in the tangible world. You own a house, you decorate it the way you want. You put additions onto it, or you take things down and make more space in your yard. Like, you can do that in real life. So why in the world wouldn't you be able to do it in software?
Right, right, exactly. All right. And then, what do you think was the most challenging when designing ScoutX? What was the most challenging part?
I think that I have a two-part answer to that one. The first really significant challenge was having to work in such a limited space and yet try to provide such a dearth of information. Like we have a lot of valuable pieces of information here. So figuring out how to put those into the user interface and make them obvious to the user, but also not overcrowding it. And I mean, our first
Mhm,
versions, I, I I left a lot of white space because as a designer, I really value white space because it allows you to make visual separations and everything. And it got to be a very large UI, and it became really obvious that our users just wanted to be able to see things all at
mhm,
once. So we did a little bit of a shift in direction when it came to the design of it and tightened things up, made things a little bit more compact. But at the same time, I think it created a much more cohesive design because it allowed us to start doing this multi-column layout that you're looking at right now, and the little modules being separated like that. It actually created a better design. Given my own preferences, I make things nice and spread out and make them breathe more. But I think this was an example of where my feedback from our beta testers and from the internal team here at InventoryLab actually helped create a better design than the one that I created initially. And the second part of my
awesome.
answer is really just figuring out what is the most important. Like that when you have so much data coming in, um, my decisions as a designer had to be made. Like I have to make this thing the thing that's visible right now, and this thing is visible in the drill down, and figuring
Mhm,
out what those bits of information were and how they broke down and what was more important than something else was really a bit of a challenge too. Partially because a lot of this, in particular the retail arbitrage space and the kinds of data that those users find valuable, was not as familiar to me as folks who do like, excuse me, online arbitrage. The retail arbitrage side of things was much more familiar to me, and the online
mhm.
arbitrage was something that I knew about, but it became obvious that different numbers are valuable to different kinds of sellers. So learning that.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right, looks like we have a question from Louisa from the audience.
Okay.
Is ScoutX part of IL or is this an extra charge?
ScoutX is part of InventoryLab. It actually uses the same login that you would use for your traditional Stratify account. And as far as whether it is going to be an extra charge, I don't believe so, but I think that this is something that while we're still beta testing, we're still trying to figure everything out. But I do believe that right now the plan is for it to be included in the InventoryLab subscription.
Very cool. Yeah, so it's not available yet. This is just a demo. It's still in beta testing, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we're pushing hard to make sure this is released soon. It's one of those things where
Mhm.
we can kind of see the finish line, but as far as an actual release date, we really don't have one yet. I can just say coming soon.
It looks like we have another question here. Let's see. From Tiffany. Just a second. I'm going to pop this into the chat real quick. So Tiffany asks, are there any other fields where we can add to Google Sheets like quantity ordered or source URL?
We started with a basic list of columns that I thought were really important and the team thought were really important to include. Um, the overall list of columns that we have available right now are mostly based on product data and the data that you're entering in when you're using the calculator, things like list price and buy cost and item notes. This is something that I do anticipate will probably expand as users give us more feedback. The Google Sheets functionality specifically just went out to beta testers not even 2 weeks ago, and they're still kind of getting it into their hands and learning how to use it. And again, then I think the plan is to get feedback from them, and then we will probably adjust based on what we hear.
Yeah. Looks like we have another question from Rebecca Bells. Does it have the ability to separate the keep a graph out if you want to look at the actual graph?
So I can actually show you what our graph looks like. It's just right here in this tab. And you have all the information that you need based on whatever time frame you choose to set. You can set it to whatever else, like you can do 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, a year, or you can view every bit of sales data for that item from the beginning of its sale.
I think they're asking like if they want to look at the graph at the same time as everything else, maybe. Is that what you mean, Rebecca? At the same time as the rank and everything, if that can actually be brought out.
But right now it lives in that tabs container, so being able to look at that stuff side by side isn't something that we're doing yet. If it's something that we hear from our users needs to happen, then we'll definitely adjust.
And you can also add a custom ASIN shortcut to Keepa too. If you want to have two windows open, you can do it that way. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what's right down. I didn't really show you that functionality in settings, but that's what this guy is right here. I actually added my own custom research shortcut, which down here in settings, it looks just like it does in settings in Stratify.
Yep, same thing. Let's see here. I'm not seeing any other questions. Let's see. Celeste says, I love all the customization options. Is this the main feature that sets ScoutX apart from your competitors?
I think there's quite a few things that we're doing that obviously we're just trying to make sure that we have a product that we can provide to our users so they don't have to pay for another subscription. So we are obviously trying to make sure that we have comparable features. But at the same time, I think that the customizability is a really big plus for ScoutX. It's something that sets us apart. Obviously, there are other products that you can use that are also customizable, but this is something that I think is probably head and shoulders above what is available right now. I also think that we're providing things that come over from our other products like custom research shortcuts and the target buy cost and that kind of thing that I think give us a little bit more. When it comes to just the overall usability of it, I think that is the real win. And the fact, again, that if you have an IL subscription, then you have ScoutX.
It looks like Rebecca's just adding to her. Like I have the capability to click on a Keepa graph in the current app I use, and it separates the graph out and makes the graph out bigger to see. So I think the best thing that you could do is just set up the custom ASIN shortcut to Keepa and make it and look at it that way. So it's just it's just a click and it takes you right to Keepa. You can see the product.
Yeah.
And then you can be able to see it side by side and on a
so typically the way that I would do it is this zoom functionality right here. If you want to see a bit of a larger piece of information, it does have the ability to drag and zoom in on that piece. It doesn't make the graph itself any bigger, but it does make those details easier to differentiate between. And again, like you can we said before, you can go out into your custom research shortcut and view the actual Keepa graph on Keepa.
Yeah. And then another thing, I noticed on the graph options you showed it had 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, and a year. As a seller, I'm looking at 90 days worth. Is that an option?
It's not currently, but it's super easy to add. The way that I would do that right now is just probably drag and zoom if you're looking at maybe 1 month, or excuse me, 1 year, or I guess 3 months is kind of 90 days worth, but it's not exactly 90.
Right.
It's not currently one of the options, but those breakdowns are just what we typically use elsewhere. And it's one of those things where we just did what we think is probably the easiest preset options and then allowed for the drill down to cover the in-betweens.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from the audience? Check the Q&A real quick. All right. I'm not seeing anything. So Jesse, is there anything you want to add at all?
I think I've said most of what I really have to say. I'm just super excited to get this into a lot more people's hands and see how people use it. And again, once this does launch and you start using it, if you have any feedback, please get in touch with support here at Inventory Lab and let us know. They communicate with us all the time. They let us know what's being said and what people are asking for. And that's what really drives what I do. So if there's something that you think is not working or something that's missing, or if there's something that you love, we love to hear that too. Just let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thanks a lot, Jesse, for demoing ScoutX to us. That's going to be a really awesome feature once it launches. I know you're going to go through everything and make sure it's the perfect product before it actually gets sent out. So I hope people understand, these things take time, and we want to make sure that it's nice and polished and ready to go. So
Absolutely.
that's what we're working on right now. But thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot an email to support@inventorylab.com if you'd like to, or you could also message Jesse inside of the Hopin app if you'd like to as well. So,
Absolutely.
all right, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
For more information on our research tool, ScoutX, visit inventorylab.link/ScoutX support. To download this game-changing extension, visit inventorylab.link/ScoutX.